Hi YouTube, it's JoeCage. I have to start off by saying this is not going to be a technical review of the two phones. It's going to be more of a comparison from a user's perspective, just plain consumer advice. Because Geekbench scores mean nothing when you have two high-end phones with different operating systems. If I'm not able to tell the difference in speed when I open an app, unless I hold both phones together, it doesn't matter. And if one phone is able to go 10 meters underwater and stay there for 60 minutes and another is able to go about 9 meters underwater and stay there for 45 minutes, I don't care. Because if I'm under 10 meters of water for 60 minutes, the phone would be the least of my worries. 3 GHz of processor, 4 gigs of RAM, 8 cores of CPU, all these numbers mean squat when comparing these two phones. So I don't care about these. At least at the time of making this video, there is no phone that can do it all and be best at all of it. It's all about what the user can compromise on. I have to be honest, I've been an iPhone fanboy. I have owned almost every iPhone since the first one, and for that reason, I might slightly be biased because I like doing things a certain way. The reason I decided to shift to Android was because of the iPhone 7 and the 7 Plus launch. If you're just going to add a couple of extra colors on the phone model and an extra camera, you might as well call it iPhone 6 SS Plus instead of iPhone 7. I had very high hopes for a major design revamp and I was very disappointed when Apple came up with the iPhone 7. Because my friends have been asking me to try out Android phones for quite some time, I thought, why not? And who better to turn for advice than MKBHD? I trust his opinion and I know the guy knows tech. So when time and again he kept repeating that Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge is the best all-around phone and he'd recommend to anyone who asks him for advice, I trusted him and I went for it. And I went to it with an open mind. If you're one of the millions of iPhone users thinking about shifting to Android, I think this video is for you. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's get started. The build quality. Both companies have upped their game on this one. I have the gold S7 Edge and the jet black iPhone 7 Plus. Really beautiful phones. But due to the repetitive design of the iPhone, I should give this one to the S7 Edge. I know I'm still a little pissed with Apple for not bringing a new design, but I don't care if you're working on the internals. I like changes on the externals at least once in 2 years. The back button. If you've been an Android user for all your life and you're shifting to iPhone for the first time, the first thing that'll annoy you will be the absence of a back button. I used the S7 Edge for 3 months and when I came back to the iPhone, I really missed the back button a lot. It's just convenient to have it there. Camera. For what MKBHD claimed to be the best all-around smartphone a few months ago, the S7 Edge has a really shitty camera. I was not a big fan of the iPhone 6s Plus camera anyways, which was one of the excuses I had to buy this DSLR I'm making this video with, but the iPhone 7 Plus has really taken this to the next level. It is very easily the best camera I've seen on a smartphone. It can easily replace the point and shoot that you might have. And the portrait mode on this phone is just breathtaking. For all those users who think the S7 Edge is a better camera than the iPhone 7 Plus, I can very confidently tell you there's something wrong with your eyes. Never mind changing the phone, first change your glasses, because the iPhone 7 Plus easily beats the Samsung S7 Edge. Charging cable. I know it might not make sense to most of y'all, but if you use the phone as much as I do, you need to have a charging cable at close proximity at all times. The micro USB cables are pretty standard and I never run out of them. I always have some device or the other which uses the micro USB cable and it's always lying around. The lightning cables on the other hand is a pain in the ass because Apple's cables are fine, but the OEM cables that you buy off the shelf work for a few weeks and then you start getting this message saying accessory not supported or accessory not compatible. They just keep going on and off with a blink sound, which is very annoying. Wireless charging. Like most iPhone users who have never had the opportunity in their faithful Apple lifetimes to try wireless charging, I was very excited about this feature on the S7 Edge. The dock occupies space on your desk and it's kind of difficult to use the phone when it is charging. So I call it a gimmick. And I think we should all reach a conclusion that this should be called induction charging and not wireless charging unless there are truly no wires involved. Else, my toothbrush has wireless charging. On the other hand, fast charging is good. I think the fast charger that comes in stock with the Samsung phones is brilliant. It charges quickly. I've kind of got used to the lifestyle of charging overnight and I don't have too much of a problem. Pleasure of use. I know this is a weird one, But trust me, it is true. Every time I wish to calculate something, verify something on the internet, or even set an alarm, I have never hesitated to pick up the iPhone and play with it at any time I've thought about it. This was not the case with the S7 Edge. I would rather let someone else do the calculations, check the internet, or set an alarm, than going through the process of doing this on the S7 Edge. I know the long-term Android users will have a field day with this comment, but if you've been a long-term iPhone user and you've recently switched to Android, you definitely know what I'm talking about. Siri. I can't remember the last time I set an alarm on the clock app or check for the nearest places to eat by opening the app. Siri might not know it all, but at least she's polite and responds to you all the time. This is not the case with S-Voice or OK Google, because they kind of only work when the phone is charging or when the phone is unlocked, which kind of defies the point of using a voice assistant altogether. I don't know if it's the same case with all the Android phones, but I've done the research on this and the Samsung S7 Edge definitely has this problem. Customization. Every time you see an iPhone user and an Android user arguing, you will always hear the Android user say, customization. I was always curious about what this was. Is it worth losing the fluidity of iOS for better looks on Android? Well, my opinion is, themes suck. They're useless, they make the phone slow. But launchers, on the other hand, for Android phones are awesome. In fact, I find the S7 Edge almost unusable without a launcher customization like Nova Launcher or Zen. If you're new to Android, definitely check out Android launchers because they make the phone's usability much better. There's just too much clutter on the app drawer to leave it as it is. You need to customize it. The default app finder is also not very great with the S7 when compared to the iPhone. Customization on the S7 is not a bug, it is a necessity. Malware and app quality. I find Android apps more intrusive with advertisements than iOS apps. And because Android apps can interact with you even when the app is not in the foreground, advertisements and upgrade notifications keep annoying you. Because Android apps are built to support multiple devices from different manufacturers, I definitely see the effect on the app quality. And during app upgrade schedules, the S7 Edge is almost unusable. You don't have these problems with the iPhone. The app upgrades and the OS upgrades are almost silent in the background. And the number of times you'll have an app crash on an iPhone when compared to the S7 Edge is very considerably and noticeably lower. Haptic feedback and iMessage. Like how Android users miss the back button when they use the iPhone for the first time, the first thing that iPhone users will notice when they move to the S7 Edge is the vibration feedback. It really feels cheap on the S7 Edge. Recently I was watching the Apple Watch teardown video and I noticed how big the haptic engine inside the Apple Watch was. I was wondering to myself, would it not be a better idea to replace the haptic engine with a regular motor for vibration feedback and fill the rest of the space with additional battery? But I stand corrected, because the feedback is definitely high quality on the iPhone. I know it's a small thing, but you'll start to notice this once you've used the iPhone for quite a bit. This constantly reminds you of how great a device you have in your hand or your pocket, and the creators have put a lot of thought into it. Especially when you use iMessage effects, the confetti or the fireworks give a feedback to the phone through the haptic engine, and it feels really high quality. It's nothing like a vibration motor. And as a side note, just like any other iPhone, iPod or Mac user, I love iMessages, and the ability to play turn-based games and respond using emotions is genius. Battery life and power saving mode. The battery on both these phones last about the same time. However, the battery on the S7 Edge takes a nosedive depending on the apps that you have installed on it. Android has no restrictions on apps whatsoever. They each do whatever they want to, and it's not like Google engineers develop all the apps. There are some idiots who use GPS location even for playing Android games like tic-tac-toe, and this drains battery life. There are two levels of power saving modes on the S7 Edge, the normal and the ultra power saving. The ultra power saving mode turns the phone into almost a Nokia 1100. It only lets you use a selected few apps and the phone goes into 50 shades of grey mode. But boy does it extend battery life. It can easily do days between charges. Can't say the same about the iPhone power saver mode though. I hardly notice a difference. Probably an additional couple of hours on standby time, but nothing like the ultra power saving mode on the S7 Edge. Speakers and ports. The earpiece on the iPhone 7 Plus works as a speaker too, so it's kind of a stereo dual speaker phone now. It's loud and clear. As for the S7 Edge, the speakers are bad. Not just when compared to the iPhone, but even when comparing it to half the phones in the market. Probably waterproofing the phone has something to do with this, but the S7 Edge doesn't have a good speaker. About the missing headphone jack on the iPhone that everybody is talking about, I think Apple did away with it too soon. If they had sacrificed it for better sound quality, then I'd be fine, but in this case, it's not better as well. At least I don't notice the difference in sound quality. Maybe they tried to make the earpods more appealing, I don't know. I have a pair of JBuds and they work just fine as they have always done. I hated wires anyways, so I'm not complaining too much on this one. Killing apps, split screen, force touch, always on display and edge. Both phones multitask well, but the S7 Edge has a split screen mode. It's when you can use two apps simultaneously, one occupying the top half of the phone and one the bottom half. It was one of the reasons I decided to purchase the S7 Edge. But I didn't use it all too much. It made copying and pasting stuff a little easier, but remember it does not work with all the apps. Split screen usage will definitely not be a deciding factor, at least for my future phone purchases. Tablets maybe, but not for the phone. Killing apps on the iPhone is a pain. Not that you have to do it very often, but every time you want to, you'll have to kill the apps one by one. To close apps on the Android phone, it's very easy. You just hit the close all button and everything vanishes. As the name suggests, the Edge feature of the S7 Edge is definitely its unique selling point. It's both good and bad. I use the Edge screen mainly for contacts and for quick app launches, especially because I hated the clutter on the Android app drawer. It is definitely a good feature to have. Checking missed calls and reading headlines on the Edge screen is very practical, and overall it looks good as well. But the problem comes when you try to use the phone with one hand. The unintended touches are crazy on this phone. There is no comfortable position to hold the phone in, especially when you're in bed and you're holding the phone above your face. The Edge screen cannot be held because it starts doing crazy things because the Edge screen also has touch sensors. The chin cannot be held because it has two soft buttons there, one for multitasking and one back button, and the forehead is too small. This was a major deal breaker for me. All S7 Edge users are making a major sacrifice on the ergonomic usage comfort for the unique design and for the few extra features. Again, it goes to say a lot about individual choices because there are a lot of sacrifices that you'll have to make based on your priorities. The always on display is good to have. The fact that you don't have to sacrifice too much of the battery life is brilliant for this. As for the iPhone, it has none of the above features. The only interesting unique selling point for me is force touch. I use it all the time. On a scale of 1 to 10, when 10 is the usage of the home button, which is very extensive, and 1 is the square mode on the camera app, which I hardly use, I would definitely rate force touch as 7. I use it quite a bit, especially for navigation apps, but I could live without it. Fingerprint sensor. As all the YouTube reviews might indicate, the Apple fingerprint sensor is second to none. It's the best fingerprint sensor on any smartphone and it works 10 out of 10 times for me. The S7 Edge, it's kind of hit and miss, especially during one-handed use. I honestly thought the new home button on the iPhone 7 would be a problem because it's not really a button, it's just a glass surface with a haptic engine feedback when you tap on it. But it doesn't bother me. To be honest, I kind of prefer this to the actual physical home button. Waterproofing. Both phones are water resistant, it's good to have just in case. I'm happy that the phones will survive accidental drops into the water or random showers in the rain. I have washed my phones a couple of times, but that's about it. Electronics and water don't get along, it's best you keep them away from each other. Storage. The iPhone I have is a 128GB model. There is a 32GB and a 256GB model as well. The 32GB is completely pointless at this point in time because the camera on the iPhone records 4K videos and high resolution photographs. The space of 32GB will easily run out. And the 256GB is way too expensive for anyone to invest on a phone which you might own for only 2 years. The S7 Edge that I have on the other hand is the 32GB model. It has 32GB of internal storage and also an SD card slot. I have a 64GB Class 10 card on it. It supports more, but I don't think you'll need it. The problem is, not all the apps can reside on the SD card. And the ones that do, kind of start performing poorly once they move to the SD card and they start crashing more often. Both Google and Apple offer cloud storage, but Apple is kind of a miser when it comes to cloud storage. They only offer 5GB of storage and I pay an extra £1 a month for the extra 50GB. Who pays for cloud storage these days? But Google, on the other hand, is abundant with storage. The Google Photos, Google Drive, and the Gmail apps are extremely generous when it comes to space. The ecosystem. All of Apple's hardware and software are developed in-house. So if you have several Apple devices like the Apple TV, the Watch, the MacBook Pro, and the AirPods, they all talk to each other and work on making your life easier. The iPhone also works very easily with the Sonos sound system, the BMW CarPlay, and the Philips Hue lighting systems. And it is all easy to use with the exception of iCloud. I still don't understand how that works sometimes. Samsung makes speakers and some other consumer electronic products like CCTV cameras and TVs, but it's not good as Apple's ecosystem. But I have to give credit to Samsung where it is due. The Gear VR is brilliant. It works very well and it's easy to use. It is good innovation and I honestly did not expect it to be as good as it is. The screen resolution is perfect for VR magnification and the controls on the side of the device are very easy to use. The only problem is the device gets very hot very quickly. You don't want the phone exploding that close to your face. I almost managed to talk the entire video without talking about Samsung phones exploding. I know Apple seems to be losing the plot after Steve Jobs, but it's not completely out of the game yet. Android phones are coming up with very good stuff, but my expectations for these phones are high. In short, Apple has not been inert enough and the Android community has not been innovative enough for me to make the jump just yet. I thought I was ready to make the jump, but I was wrong. And today, the 9th of February 2017, I think the iPhone 7 Plus is the best all-around phone in the market. If you agree with me, like this video. If you disagree, like the video anyways. But leave a comment and we can discuss this later. Take care.